Okay, so in our previous class, we had just concluded on, we can say, the first part of our course, since we are looking at purchasing and also materials management. So our course is focusing on two distinct components. The first one has to do with purchasing, and then the other one has to do with the managing of the materials that you procure or you purchase as an organization. So under the previous classes, we were focused on the first part, which is the procurement or purchasing. Now, as we begin this new chapter, we are going to now take a look at the other component or part, which has to do with the materials management. So materials management is defined as the planning, acquiring, storing, moving, and controlling of materials as per the requirement of the organization. Materials management is basically related with smooth flow of materials. The major activities covered under materials management are the anticipation of materials required in the organization from time to time. It involves ordering and obtaining materials from the suppliers, introducing the materials to the organization, and monitoring the status of materials. It helps to optimize the usage of facilities, personnel, and funds, and to provide service to the user in the line with the organization aims. Materials management is the coordination and control of various materials activity. Okay, so simply materials management in a layman's term, we can just say it's the management of the materials that you have procured or purchased as an organization, and the whole process of managing of these materials involves different process or steps, which include, of course, storage, acquiring, moving, controlling of materials as per requirement of the. You also have to plan for the materials that you are procuring or you're buying for your organization as you plan to implement your given project. Major activities that are covered under materials management are, of course, the anticipation of materials required by the organization from time to time. If you remember, we talked about various procurement strategies. We talked about the materials that have to be procured from time to time so that we can continue the daily operation of your given organization. Then there are those materials that are procured, maybe let's say at given points, or they are procured just on specific dates. Okay, and these usually we said they are bought in bulk. These are materials that are bought in bulk. Then those that are procured on a daily basis or from time to time, so that to ensure there's a continued smooth operation of the organization, are usually bought in small quantities. So under materials management, as you anticipate, okay, as you anticipate materials to be brought, so that you can be able to properly make a plan on how you'll be able to store these materials, move these materials, and ensure that these materials are properly allocated where they're supposed to be allocated. You must be able to know which ones are being procured on a daily basis, and then which one are also being procured from specific times or point in time. And then the advantage of materials management, or the purpose of materials management, is that it helps us to optimize the use of facilities, personnel, and funds, and provide services to the user in line with the organization aim. So just from the term itself, management, we are supposed to know to say this process, okay, is something that is supposed to help us use resources in the best way possible to ensure that we do not waste them, but at the same time we also produce the maximum utility or output that we can get or produce out of them. Now, when it comes to materials management, the key activities that are usually involved include the following. So there's the first one, which is the purchasing activities. So purchasing activities involves mainly identification of materials needs, market research, maintaining materials records, etc. So purchasing activities simply has to do with things that include going to do the market research before you can make purchases, so that you can know the best competitive prices to buy your materials. Then maintaining materials records, as you are managing these materials that you are storing, isn't it, or you are procuring. It is important to also keep records so that you can know whether the materials are not being stolen or the materials are not getting lost. And then identification of materials needs. So before you can procure or purchase materials, you first have to have a legit reason why you want to procure or buy this same given material. So all of this falls under the first activity, which is the purchasing activities. Then we've got the second activity, which involves which is the procurement activity, and it involves materials specification, materials studies, and receiving of materials. So here, this is where you get to now specify the materials. It might be in terms of quantity, or it might be in terms of quality and brand. So depending on the standard of projects that you want to embark on as the organization, there will be materials that will require a certain standard or a certain quantity. So under the procurement activity, you get to specify these quantity or quantities. Apart from that, procurement also involves receiving materials. Okay, so these materials, when they are being received, how are you going to receive them? You also have to know the time when they are going to arrive, so that you can prepare yourself to receive them. And then apart from that, procurement activities also include things to do with materials studies. And then apart from purchasing activities and procurement activities, we also have what is known as the inventory management, or inventory management, sorry. So inventory, already we know these are materials or goods or stock that we have already bought and we have stored somewhere in our warehouse, isn't it? Now, depending on the project or the nature of the project, it will also depend on the nature of materials that you are going to buy. Okay, and then different types of materials will require a specific type of attention when it comes to keeping or handling these materials that you have received, when it comes to storing them. There are certain materials, for example, if you are conducting a project under foods, you're trying to you manufacture food, so you need to buy materials that will help you manufacture your foods or manufacture your drinks. Okay, so maybe you buy fruits. So as you buy those fruits, you need to understand that fruits cannot be just kept anyhow. Okay, if you just keep them anyhow, they'll probably get spoiled, and when they get spoiled, you'll be able to proceed and use them to create your drinks. Or if not that, maybe your quality of your fruits may just be compromised, and once that is compromised, it will also mean that your drinks that you want to manufacture or produce as an organization will also be compromised. Therefore, to avoid that, you need to know how to handle or store these fruits once they are received. So all of that falls under inventory management activities. Okay, so that's the third one. The fourth one of the key activities that are involved under materials management is what is known as supply management. So supply management involves monitoring in-plant materials, handling, strategic planning of materials, and so on and so forth. All right, so once you have acquired or procured your resources or materials as organization, the next thing will be knowing how to distribute or how to hand over these resources to the required departments, okay, so that these required departments, as you are giving them these materials, they can be able to perform their specific tasks or roles in implementation of projects for the organization. Okay, so it involves monitoring in-plant materials handling and then also strategic planning of the materials. Right, the main activities that are involved under management of materials or the materials that you procure. Now, materials can involve, of course, when we talk about handling of materials, we're talking about materials that will be used to manufacture or produce goods and services. Now, we have got different classification of manufacturing materials. Okay, so manufacturing materials fall into the following categories. The first one can be categorized as raw materials. Okay, so it is the so when we talk about raw materials, these are materials that the company is required to transform into finished goods. It is very important. The shortage of HOTS can stop the production and can cause high losses. It is different for different industries. As for example, the textile industry, the cotton is the main input. For automobile industry, the spare parts are very important. Okay, so when we talk about raw materials, we're simply just talking about materials that can be processed so as to come up or produce a final product. Like I was giving an example earlier, maybe let's say you are working for an organization that is trying to make or produce fruit juice or drinks. Okay, so for us to be able to produce that final product, which is the fruit juice or the fruit drink, the first thing we have to do is we have to ensure we have fruits available. So the fruits are the raw materials that we can be able to process so that we can come up with our final product, which is the fruit juice or fruit drink. Okay, so that's under the first classification of manufacturing materials. All right, so now we also have another classification which is known as manufactured parts. So these are parts, these parts are the output of the organization. These are finished materials built by the company. Okay, so the best example we can give here is under the automobile manufacturing. So under the automobile manufacturing, this is where we get to assemble different parts so that we can be able to come up with the final product, which is an automobile. By the way, an automobile is simply just a car. So you buy the necessary or required spare parts that have already been manufactured by other companies. For example, you look at the indicator lights, you look at the windshield, you look at the tires. So all these, the tires have already been fully manufactured, the windshield has already been manufactured, the indicator lights, the doors, and all of these things, and including the then you as an organization, all you do is you just get this already finished and manufactured spare parts, then come and assemble them together so that you can be able to create or come up with a finished product, which is a car or automobile. Of course, there are a lot of examples you can give, but I feel like that's the closest example we can give to understand this classification of manufacturing materials, which is the falling under manufactured parts. All right, so that's the second one. The third one that we can look at is the process. These are semi-finished products found at various stages in the production process. Okay, so here, this is where we have products that are not yet fully manufactured, but they are just manufactured halfway. Okay, and then we can be able to use them so that we can be able to come up with a final or finished product. So for this one, I don't know which example I give. Okay, we can give maybe, let's say, under foods and beverages. If you are an organization that is trying to create certain beverages, you will require things like, maybe we can give an example. You need, maybe, let's say, some halfway finished products. What example can we give, right? Anyway, I will leave this one as an homework for you. You can go do a little bit of research. All right, but just know that they are similar to manufactured parts, but they are not yet finished parts. Okay, they are like just halfway finished products, and then we can be able to use them so that we can be able to come up with a final product. Maybe we can give an example of copper. When it's been extracted, it is first extracted into ore form, then it can later be purified, or I don't know if it is purified, and then finally we can be able to start using it to create copper cables and other copper products. Right, so that is under work in process classification of manufacturing materials. Now, we also have got what is known as packed materials. These are materials that are packed together to prevent damage during transportation and deterioration when they are stored. So I think a good example we can also give here is simply the same example we gave before for copper. So sometimes when copper is being transported, to prevent it from rusting or becoming impure or catching other chemicals that might destroy its purity, you discover that it is packed together with other chemicals, so that to ensure that it is maintained in its purity. Okay, so these materials fall under packed materials. And then we have got the MRO supplies, which are materials that are required for maintenance, repairing, and operating supplies in the manufacturing process regularly for the smooth manufacturing. Example can be soap, lubricating oil, grease, plastic, and rubber parts, screwdrivers, nuts, and so on and so forth. These supplies, we discover that these are materials that are usually used so as to ensure a smooth flow of given a smooth flow or operation of given product. Then we have got another classification here of materials. Okay, so these are materials that are partially fabricated and that should be handled individually. Okay, so they are partially fabricated and they should be handled individually. All right, so for today's class, that's where we shall be able to end. And then when we come again in our next class, we shall be able to come and continue, and we shall be able to start by looking at the objectives of materials management department, which of course is a department in every organization that is in charge in ensuring that it conducts management of the materials that are being procured or bought by a given organization. Alright, so see you in our next class.